Why do high earners see their wealth quietly stall in their late 40s, even on a six-figure salary? ADP, the company behind 1 in 6 U.S. paychecks, just analyzed 110 million payroll records and found the answer. Median wages peak at 45 to 54, then drop. But the salary ceiling is only one part of what is happening. At the exact same moment your income flatlines, the 2026 economy delivers the most expensive decade of your life, and an AI-driven job market that no longer rewards your tenure. I will break down the 4 forces behind what we call the silent wealth peak, and the moves you need to make before the window closes. Most high earners are chasing a number, 4 million, 5 million, whatever their financial advisor told them they needed before they could stop. And while they are chasing it, something quietly goes wrong in the decade that was supposed to build it. Because here is what nobody tells you. Financial freedom is not a number. It is a ratio. The gap between what your life costs and what your assets produce, with or without you in the room. And the cruel irony is that the decade when most high earners finally have the income to build that gap, their late 40s, is the exact decade when 4 forces converge to drain it instead. These are not people who fail to earn. These are high performers. 6-figure salaries, corner offices, the careers their younger selves worked toward for decades. And yet the momentum quietly stalls. Before they see it coming, before they know what hit them. I am going to show you the 4 forces, when they hit, and what to do about it before the window closes. Let me ask you something. When you picture your financial future, what does the trajectory look like? For most high earners, the mental image is a line that keeps climbing. More experience, more value, more pay. That is the deal you signed up for. That is what the career ladder promised. Here is what the data actually shows. That same data set found something that should stop you in your tracks. Median wages peak for the 45 to 54 age group. The number is $97,600, the highest of any age cohort in the entire data set. And then in the decade that follows, 55 to 64, that number falls to 92,800. Not stalls, falls. That is the income ceiling, and nobody puts it on a slide at your annual review. Now, before you say, that is the median, I am not the median, let me introduce you to someone. Meet the Henry, high earner, not rich yet. A physician in Boston, $320,000 a year. By any reasonable definition, a high earner. But after federal and state taxes, after the mortgage in a city where median home prices are among the highest in the country, after $200,000 in medical school debt repayment, after childcare, after professional dues and licensing and continuing education, what is left for actual wealth building? Surprisingly little. And this is not a Boston problem or a physician problem. This is a structural problem that shows up across professions, across cities, across income brackets that society tells you should be more than enough. If you are watching this, there is a good chance this describes your life more than you would like to admit. Now here is where the 2026 economy adds a twist that most financial content is completely ignoring. Everyone assumed AI was coming for the young workers first, the entry-level jobs, the repetitive stuff, the junior roles nobody wanted anyway. The data from 2025 and 2026 tells a very different story. A survey of 1,000 U.S. business leaders found that high-salary employees, and specifically those who lack AI-related skills, now face the highest layoff risks of any group. 58% of those leaders believe layoffs are likely in 2026, and the roles being targeted first are not the cheapest ones. They are the most expensive ones, because when a company can replace a $120,000 manager with a $20 a month AI subscription, that is not a choice, that is arithmetic. And the emotional reality of all of this is already showing up in the data. More than half of six-figure earners, 58%, no longer feel financially successful. And in every single state in America, a $100,000 salary no longer qualifies as upper class. The ceiling is real, the timeline is now, and this is only the first force. Because right at the moment your income hits its peak, your expenses decide to do something completely different. I want you to picture a sandwich, not a metaphor. An actual structural reality that 43% of households earning over $100,000 are living inside right now. On one side, aging parents who need care. On the other side, children who are either in college, approaching college, or technically adults who are not yet financially independent. And in the middle, you, still working, still performing, carrying both. This is what researchers call the sandwich generation, and the numbers attached to it are staggering. A home health aide for an aging parent costs around $80,000 per year. Assisted living runs approximately $54,000 annually. And 4 years at a private college, the destination many high earners are working toward for their children, averages $234,000. Think about that for a second. $234,000 for one child for 4 years. And nearly 3/4 of people in their 40s with adult children are still financially supporting those kids. Not through college, after. 1/3 of people between 40 and 60 are managing both sides simultaneously. 69% of them describe themselves as financially exhausted. Not stressed, exhausted. There is a difference. Now layer on top of that something that the financial media rarely names directly: lifestyle creep. Not the version where you buy a slightly nicer coffee, the version that locks you in. Goldman Sachs published data in 2025 that most people in this income bracket genuinely cannot believe when they first see it. 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year say they are living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of Americans earning over $500,000 say the same. Among Americans earning $200,000 or more, 64% have used rewards points to cover essential purchases. 50% have used buy now, pay later for purchases under $100. 46% have leaned on credit cards just to get through the month. These are not people who made bad decisions. These are people who made a series of perfectly reasonable looking upgrades over the course of a career and woke up one day to realize that each upgrade had become a fixed cost they could no longer undo. The bigger house comes with the bigger mortgage, the higher property taxes, the more expensive maintenance. The private school has tuition that compounds every year. The car lease, the club membership, the neighborhood, all of it feels earned. All of it becomes a cage. And here is what Goldman calls it directly: a financial vortex, where housing, childcare, and healthcare swallow a rising share of take-home pay, regardless of how much that pay grows. They project that by 2033, 55% of U.S. households will feel financially squeezed, including households that are well into six figures. The vortex is widening, not narrowing. And then there is something that Kearney's 2026 analysis surfaced. And this is the part that catches most high earners completely off guard. You have probably heard about the K-shaped economy, the idea that the upper arm of earners keeps rising while the lower arm struggles. And most high earners assume they are safely on the upper arm. Kearney found that even above $160,000 in household income, many families are what they called on thin ice. Because when your fixed costs rise alongside your income, and they always do, a high salary does not create security. It creates the appearance of security. And if your income stops, the appearance goes with it. So force 1 stalls your income. Force 2 detonates your expenses. Now add the third force, and this one is not about your bank account. It is about what is happening inside your head. I want to talk about something that Nobel Prize-winning economist Daniel Kahneman spent his career documenting. It is called loss aversion, and it is the reason that smart, analytically capable, financially literate people make investment decisions in their late 40s that quietly cost them millions. Loss aversion runs as high as 2.41 times, meaning the pain of losing $1,000 is more than twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. The average investor needs to see a portfolio gain of $2,410 just to emotionally offset the pain of a $1,000 loss. Not to break even financially, to break even emotionally. That asymmetry is not a personality flaw. It is a documented cognitive bias that gets measurably stronger as you get closer to retirement. And here is what it does to your portfolio. Study after study, looking at what people actually hold, not just what they say they would do, shows that investors get more conservative as they age. Not because a financial advisor told them to, because the emotional weight of potential losses finally outgrew the appetite for potential gains. By the time most high earners hit their late 40s, their portfolio is already drifting conservative, not by strategic design, by emotional gravity. Now, here's the thing. The instinct to protect what you have built is not irrational. Think about it this way. A bad market in the 2 years before you retire can wipe out a decade of gains because you have no time left to recover. That risk is real. That fear is legitimate. The problem is that it kicks in about a decade too early for most high earners. And every year of unnecessary conservatism is a compounding year you do not get back. The math on that is brutal, and it is permanent. A 2025 survey of high net worth Americans found that 96% feel confident in their overall financial situation, but only 21% say they are confident in every aspect of their financial planning. Confidence is not a plan, and in your late 40s, mistaking one for the other is exactly where wealth silently starts to leak. Here is the specific window that most high earners in this bracket are missing right now. Workers aged 50 and older can contribute up to $32,000 per year into a retirement account in 2025. When you add employer matching and other allowable contributions, the total ceiling reaches $72,000 annually. And if you earned over $150,000 in 2025, your catch-up contributions now go into Roth accounts by law. A Roth account means you pay tax now and pay nothing on the way out, which matters enormously when your income is at its peak and your future withdrawals could be taxed even higher. Most high earners in this bracket are not maximizing this window. The psychology of conservatism is costing them the exact mechanism that could close the gap. The psychology shift is almost invisible. It happens gradually and it feels like wisdom, but it is working against you right when staying invested would matter most. The fourth force? This one is the most personal, and for many high earners, the most financially devastating. I want to give a name to something that is quietly reshaping the leadership landscape in 2025 and 2026. It is called conscious unbossing. DDI, one of the leading leadership research firms in the world, surveyed 11,000 leaders, including 2,000 HR professionals. What they found was a major credibility crisis at the top of organizations and an accelerating trend of high-performing, high-potential professionals actively choosing to opt out of leadership tracks. Not because they could not handle the role, because they decided the role was no longer worth what it cost them. And here is what it costs. 70% of C-suite executives say they want to quit their current position for something that better supports their well-being. These are people working an average of 62.5 hours per week. More than 80% describe themselves as always on, no genuine boundary between work and recovery. The health data behind this is not soft. Executive burnout is linked to a 21% increase in cardiovascular disease risk, a significantly elevated stroke risk, and an 84% increased risk of type 2 diabetes. The high-performance career carries a biological tax, and it compounds quietly over years until the body starts presenting the bill. Fortune has documented case after case of executives who gave up the titles, the compensation, the homes, who walked away from everything the career had built, not because they were forced out, but because lifestyle creep had built a cage so tight that the only way out was to blow it up. And here is the critical insight that most financial content misses entirely. Stepping back from a high-stress, high-pay role is not inherently a financial mistake. Stepping back without income that does not require you to show up, that is the mistake. The high earner who exits at 48 without that infrastructure loses compounding years they will never recover. Not because they made the wrong life decision, but because they made it in the wrong order. They chose the exit before they built the bridge. 4 forces: income ceiling, obligation collision, psychology shift, burnout exit. This is the silent wealth peak. So what do you actually do about it? Because I told you at the start I would show you what to do while you still have time. Here it is. Everything I have shown you is a structural problem. 4 forces, same decade, same people, and almost nobody sees it coming until the momentum is already gone. The cage gets built one reasonable decision at a time, and the only way out is to build something stronger than it before you need to leave. Generic advice built this trap. Generic advice will not get you out of it. 3 pillars, not tips, not suggestions, pillars, because a pillar holds something up, a tip does not. The first pillar is income defense. Force One told you that high salary roles are being targeted by AI first, not last. first. So the question is not whether this affects you. The question is what you do about it before it does. Here is what the data shows about who actually survives this. AI and data science specialists are the fastest growing category in the 2025 labor market. Personal financial advisors are projected to grow 13% through 2032. Not because those roles are easy, because they require something a subscription cannot replicate: human judgment in a complex moment, a relationship built on trust over years, the ability to sit across from someone when everything feels uncertain and make them feel like someone actually understands their situation. That is not automatable. Not yet. Possibly not ever. So here's the question I want you to answer before you finish this video. What part of what you do every single day could only be done by you? Not your title, not your years of service. You, your judgment, your relationships, your specific way of navigating complexity. That part is your moat. Everything outside it is exposure. Double down on the moat, aggressively, now. Because the professionals who thrive in the 2026 economy are not the ones with the longest CVs. They are the ones who became impossible to replace. The Henry who builds that moat stops being a high earner who is not rich yet and starts becoming someone the market cannot touch. The second pillar is the one most high earners delay until it is too late. Right now, your income works like this. You show up, you perform, you get paid. You stop showing up, the income stops. That is a single point of failure, and you have built an entire life on top of it. Only 20% of U.S. households generate any income that does not require them to show up for work. The median among those who do? $4,200 a year. That is not a strategy. That is a rounding error on your current salary. So what actually moves the needle for someone in this income bracket? Real estate investment funds, where you are legally owed at least 90% of what the fund earns. Regular income, no tenants, no maintenance calls at midnight. Real estate crowdfunding platforms that have historically targeted returns of 7 to 12%. Real estate exposure without being a landlord. Dividend-focused index funds. And knowledge monetization. Your professional expertise turned into consulting income or course revenue that generates without requiring you to be in the room for every hour billed. One former investment banker built $80,000 a year through a combination of these. He did not build it after he left his career. He built it while he was still in it, using the salary he had to fund the income that would eventually replace it. That is the order of operations. The time to build income that does not require you to show up is not after you need it. It is right now, while you still have the salary to fund it and the runway to let it grow. Build the bridge while you can still afford the materials. The third pillar is the one with the hardest deadline. Workers aged 50 and older can contribute $32,000 per year directly into a retirement account in 2025. Layer in employer matching and every other allowable contribution. The ceiling hits $72,000 annually. $72,000 per year in tax-advantaged accounts. And for those earning over $150,000, which is most people watching this, those catch-up contributions go into Roth accounts, tax-free on the way out. During the years when your income is at its absolute peak. Earlier, I talked about how loss aversion pushes high earners toward conservatism, right when staying invested would matter most. This window is exactly what that conservatism is costing you. Not in theory, in real dollars that will never exist. This window has a closing date, and it is closer than it feels. Every year you do not maximize it is a year of tax-free growth that is gone permanently, not deferred, gone. So here's the reframe I want to leave you with. Stop measuring success by your salary number. Start measuring it by the gap between what your life costs and what your assets produce, with or without you in the room. That gap is the real number, the one that determines whether your late 40s become the decade that imprisoned you or the decade that set you free. Net worth sustainability beats gross income growth, every time, no exceptions. Your income is not your wealth, your architecture is. Build it now, while you still have time. Let me take you back to where we started. Most high earners are chasing a number, and while they chase it, four forces quietly take apart the decade that was supposed to build it. The income ceiling arrives right when the obligations detonate. The psychology shifts right when staying invested would matter most. And the burnout exit comes for people who never built a bridge because they never thought they would need one. But here is what the people who actually get free figured out. They stopped chasing the number. They started building the ratio, the gap between what their life costs and what their assets produce, with or without them in the room. They defended their income before the displacement came. They built income that did not require them to show up while the salary was still there to fund it. They maximized the compounding window instead of drifting conservative, and they made the exit, when they were ready, in the right order. The Henry who does all of this does not retire to nothing. They retire to everything. Now you know what they know. I want to hear what landed for you. Drop it in the comments, whether that is something that surprised you, something that hit close to home, or something you flat out disagree with. This channel only gets better when you are part of the conversation. And if this was worth your 21 minutes, it is probably worth 30 seconds to subscribe.